to the Jazz Musician's Voice. Today we're presenting an interview I did with two members of an electronic group, Progressive Overload, great musicians, Nathan Hook, and Paolo Canterella, a drummer. Nate Hook is a saxophone player. I did this interview with them over Skype. Obviously, it's my first interview that I did with two people on Skype, and the built-in Skype video recorder didn't work as well as I thought. So you will see both of these players, but they aren't always in the frame, and I apologize about that. We've got some new software, so that issue won't happen again. But these guys really have a lot of great info to share about their group, and Nathan was a fellow student of mine at William Patterson, and we were in Harold Mayburn's ensemble, and I played with Nathan and had him on some of my recordings. He's a great musician. Paolo, I met through a mutual friend of ours, Campbell Charshi, and they're both just incredible musicians, and they're young cats on the scene, kind of sharing their vision and their input. So I really hope you guys enjoy this video. Please stay tuned. We have a lot of other feature content coming out. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, give a like, and we will have new content soon. Thank you. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, today I'm fortunate to speak with a couple of young cats on the scene who I've known for quite some time, Nate Hook and Paolo Canterella. In fact, I've known Nate, must have been well over 10 years, because we were in Harold Mayburn's ensemble together. And I remember you came from Texas. So we'll go back. We'll start with Nate. I met Paolo obviously through Campbell Charshi. We did a lot of sessions at Campbell's place. So, Nate, how did you get involved with music? You are from Austin, Texas, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my dad, he actually played sax all the way through college before he decided to study rocks instead of music. So he had a huge vinyl collection, and I was listening to Bird basically since before I was born. My family has a funny story. I was like overdue, so they put like the headphones on the mother's womb, and I think they put on Bird with strings. So, because if the baby kicks, they're not dead.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I grew up listening to saxophone. I always wanted to play, but my mom made me play piano first. And then, like, middle school, I started playing saxophone. Tried to learn the Omni book on, like, the third week of school, but I couldn't handle it yet. And then Austin was a good place because I think, like, compared to New York, like, the musicians in town were much more accessible. So even in, like, high school, people were cool about letting me sit in on their gigs and stuff. And I was able to start playing gigs when I was like 14, 15, before I could even drive.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, you got your parents to drive you, right?
Yeah, that's how it was. I used to play like a weekly gig. Same thing with my dad. Yeah, he'd drive you around.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty great that you did have that piano background too, because you actually double in quite a few instruments. I've seen you play, obviously piano and also bass clarinet and bagpipes and flute and a bunch of different instruments. And then to Paolo, I'm not as familiar with your early background as well, but you're from New Jersey, and we did meet with Campbell Charshi playing a few sessions, and you are quite a working drummer on the scene. So tell us a little bit about your relationship with the drums?
Yeah, so I started playing drums in school, or really I was air drumming to like my grandfather's records, and then I signed up for drums at school. And I was really involved with mostly the school programs at my public school. So, there's symphonic band, there was like a middle school jazz band. So a lot of like kind of classical stuff, a lot of jazz stuff that was, kind of these easy arrangements. And then eventually in high school, I got involved with marching band and like the pit orchestra. Like I joined almost everything I could possibly do, music related. I did a men's choir one year. That was pretty cool. So I wasn't really gigging, I guess, but we were doing a lot of competitions, and my school really provided a lot of that for me. And I started auditioning for other programs in the state, things through like I think at the time it was called the there was like a Jazz Educators Association in New Jersey where you could audition for things. So I did some of those
cool
programs. Yeah, so it was, I would have to really give my school a lot of credit. And I had some really great early teachers that taught me a lot of like reading and rock music. And I had a teacher that exposed me to like the Jim Chapin book pretty early, which is like a major just coordination book for jazz drumming. Yeah, that was kind of the start. That's kind of what got me going.
And how did the two of you guys initially meet, and how did you guys start working together?
You want me to take this?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. So Paul had this gig. It was every week at this place called Insanity, and all they sold was tea, no alcohol. So he called me up one day and was like, "Do you want to play this gig at Insanity?" And at the end of the gig, I wouldn't let him pay me, so then it was my gig.
It wasn't really a cover charge. It was, it was a tips gig, but we could play whatever we wanted, which was a pretty big deal. We could really kind of try anything. So, the gig itself was really fun.
I mean, this was like my second year at William Patterson. So we'd go there. We'd usually rehearse at my place by William Patterson. Then we'd grill up some burgers or something, and then we'd go play the gig. So we'd rehearse, and we worked on all kinds of like original songs. I remember you brought in some like Dave Binney. We'd try to play like Dave Holland.
Anything that we liked.
Yeah, everything we wanted to try, we just tried on this gig. And then for a while, it was 2 days a week.
It was 2 days a week. The spot was really cool. The owner started charging just like a small cover charge, which was also really cool. It was just like $5 to get in on like a music night. So we could actually walk out of the gig with like $20 or $25 plus like the tips. So it was cool, I mean, for a college student, that made it worth just, showing up and, paying for the food or whatever we bought, anything like that.
Yeah, and then we just kept playing.
Yeah. And you guys kept playing, and you basically started this jazz kind of fusion jazz rock group called Progressive Overload. And you guys have put out quite a lot of material over the years. So can you talk about how that group started and what were some of your influences?
Yeah. I mean, going back to those Insanity gigs, we called the band Sunwheel back then. It was like a quartet with bass and guitar. And I think by that time, we both started going to those Steve Coleman classes in the city, like every Monday. So I don't want to say I necessarily understand everything about Steve Coleman, but some of the stuff he taught was definitely like influencing how we thought about different types of rhythmic structures and things. By that time, I was really getting into the music of Gary Thomas, and he has a couple albums that use a lot of synthesizers that I just thought was awesome. So starting about right when I moved to New York, 2014 or something, 2012 maybe?
No, it was...
Yeah, 2012,
yeah. 2012.
We started mixing in like synthesizers with the music, and then 2015 we recorded like a quintet album with Billy Test, Louis Demule, and Travis Reuter. And then eventually, almost out of logistic necessity. I lived in Baltimore. Paul was in Jersey. Billy was in Queens. And Louis and Travis were in different parts of Brooklyn. We couldn't do these quintet gigs because it was like organizing D-Day.
Getting everyone together.
Yeah, it was hard to get everybody in the same room. It was a challenge.
So we started to work more in this like duo setting, using sequencers, which was another thing that was inspired by Gary Thomas. He gave me a bootleg of one of his bands playing in the 90s with sequences. And I just thought that was awesome. So we've been messing with that ever since.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly something that is pretty cool about electronic music that I've noticed, especially in these times. There's just so much technology out there, and I know of many different jazz influenced groups that kind of implement these sequences. And a favorite group of mine, some of the guys I follow, or a couple that I follow, is the band Knower, which is Genevieve Artadi and Louis Cole out of Los Angeles. And when they perform, they also have like kind of backgrounds, and it's a whole show. But it's a good concept. And obviously, I think the first time I was influenced by like the whole fusion thing was Weather Report, and listening to Heavy Weather, and Zawinul, and Wayne Shorter, and Jocko. But over the years, I've listened to quite a few of that stuff. Some of the Dave Holland stuff from the 70s, and then Chick Corea. I think I was mentioning to you, Nate, The Ultimate Adventure was one of the Chick Corea ones he had put out in like 2006. It's kind of a favorite of mine, with a lot of those flutes and a lot of different sounds, and the drumming's there too. So you guys kind of have been doing this. About a year ago, you guys came with some pretty nicely produced videos that you posted, and that's kind of how I became aware of your projects. And talk a little bit about that. And you guys just came out with an EP, 100, right?
Yeah, year 100.
Year 100. Well, it's some interesting music there. How long did you guys work on that? Was that like a project during the coronavirus?
It was, yes. To go back to those videos you mentioned, that was about a year ago, I think, right around Easter.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah, generally.
Yeah, and
they're from 2019.
Yeah, and
right. Yeah.
All those videos basically make up our third EP. So if you listen to the third EP and you go watch those videos, it's the same exact audio. One of the reasons we did those is we wanted to one thing with electronic music is you can get stuck, like working with things. I think I've used Pat Metheny used the expression like watercolor versus oil painting, where one you can like make endless edits and the other one is like you get one shot. So when we did those videos, it's like we're going to play these live and it's all going to be one shot, almost like a jazz record, you just play through the tunes. Whereas like this recent EP, Year 100, that's like studio chopped, everything's chopped, multiple takes, all kinds of stuff. But yeah, to get back to your other question, the Year 100, yeah, it was a quarantine project. Right when quarantine hit, I had all this free time. So like every morning I'd go down, sit down at the piano, work on composing some stuff. And then we put it on the synthesizers, did everything with all the hardware. And then I basically sent the finished tracks. Well, not the finished tracks, but the form was locked in place. There was no like open loops or anything. When I sent it to Paul, and then he did the drums, and then I mixed it.
pretty cool. I mean, what some people might not know is that Nate, you live in Philadelphia, and Paolo, you are in New Jersey, so it's kind of a distance. You guys have to do stuff. How were you able to travel during the coronavirus, or you just kind of do it virtually?
This was all remote. So everything else we'd done, we tracked it together, usually here in Jersey. It's not that far.
Yeah, I would say a big thing to consider just going through the EPs is some of them have a lot of improvisation on them where there's a lot of interaction. So those things we were in the same room, like listening live, playing together. Like the Iron Factory EP, the live one, obviously that's all live. And I would say something you can really see with the growth is there's a composition called Prelude off the very first EP. And then we re-recorded that same track on the Iron Factory thing, and it's just so much looser. We're so much more comfortable. Playing with in-ear monitors in is a lot different than, playing a jazz gig or something with them out. You have to get used to, kind of dealing with all the levels, but you can hear how much more comfortable we are just playing live by that third one compared to the first EP. But if you notice the EP we just put out, there's almost no solos. It's almost all written material. So we kind of jump between, periods where it's a lot about interaction and trying to do things live with the sequencers versus things that are more composed. And, for the quarantine stuff, it was way easier to do a composed project than, trying to, what would I really be able to do? Like, I'd have to play the track, then he would record a solo, then maybe I'd re-record the drum track so it sounds like I'm interacting with the things he's doing.
We've done that before.
We've done that before, and it works to an extent, but you could fool somebody into thinking you played together, but there's nothing like being in the same room. So for this past one, everything was composed.
Yeah. Well, something I wanted to go into, kind of interesting. I follow you guys on Facebook too, and you guys have other hobbies as well. Like Nate, you're kind of one of the jazz bros. You do heavy weightlifting and deadlifting, and you guys have quite a few barbecues, outdoor barbecues, where you experiment with stuff. What are some of your other hobbies? Talk about your other hobbies with this stuff.
You go ahead. You just said my hobbies.
I could use some more hobbies, to be honest with you. Yeah, I don't know. I think like anytime I usually have something outside of music, it ends up like creeping into music. Like I could give an example of another project where I'm a fan of these like Final Fantasy games, and Peter hit me up about Peter Lynn, which I'm sure you know him too. Were you guys in school together?
Yeah, great trombonist.
Yeah, so, Peter and I played a remake of a game that was, the one I really liked from my childhood. And, okay, I don't play a ton of video games, but when I do play one, I usually really go deep. Just, try to have a good time with it. But we try to take a lot of the music from that game and adapt it to, like, trombone quartets or a person trombone group. And I'm trying to, like, transcribe these drum parts. But, yeah, I don't know. Outside of music and working, I don't know. I try to just spend time with my fiance, so I don't get into too much trouble.
I think it's worth mentioning the weightlifting stuff because that's actually where the band name comes from. Some people think
progressive overload, right?
Yeah. Like progressive overload has something to do with politics or something. It doesn't. That's the term from weightlifting. Like you knew me when I first came to William Patterson. I was like 130 pounds, like could barely do a push-up. And back when I had a blog, I wrote a whole post on this, like seeing a video of Gary Thomas play. And I was like, I don't think I could possibly play like this if I'm like a tiny little scrawny, person. So I got into weightlifting back at William Patterson. Progressive overload is basically this method of training, sort of. It's just a principle of weightlifting where if you don't increase the challenge, you will not grow. So, I mean, usually when I'm teaching, I'll use the example, it doesn't matter how many times you do 2 + 2 = 4. It doesn't make you better at math. same thing with music and weightlifting and, reading or whatever. Like if you bench 100 pounds, you either have to increase the repetitions or increase the weight, or you won't get any better. And I think like our band, like we've kind of tried to stick to that, where every EP we do, we're like trying to get on another level of, just increasing the workload or difficulty, basically keep working and increase the challenges on yourself to grow.
Well, that's definitely a good point. And, the two of you are also working musicians. You each have separate projects. How are you guys staying busy during this epidemic time? How has the coronavirus affected the two of you?
Okay, I'll go. All right, so I teach like maybe about 20 students a week. So I have a pretty big roster of kids. I started making a lot of online content for them. So, I mostly teach like beginner and intermediate students, and I try to just make them learn songs that, maybe it might be something Steve Gadd drummed on, or, just kind of what he's talking about, gradually increasing the difficulty to teach certain skills from songs. So I kind of made this whole online classroom for them that, has like snare drum reading. So that was a very big project. Just for that, I probably made like 60 or 70 videos. The videos contain the notation. So that was big. And I've been freelance recording just a ton of stuff. I've probably recorded, I don't know, like 80 tracks by now. I did a lot of work for a church, just playing like a lot of like Christian rock and gospel music for their streams. They stream the music every week, and instead of like, taking the original artist and having to pay, permission to use the rights of the stream, they have all their own musicians and worship leaders still sing. And we pass like a Logic file around. Usually I'll record first the drums and pass it to the next person. So that's been interesting. Just for that church alone, that was probably like 40 tracks, but just a ton of just freelance recording, which is so much different because you have to be so good at really locking with a click track big time. It's much different than playing live, like really locking with that click track, to a micro division. Because even if you're off by a little bit and then you listen back to something and take the click away, you could hear where you got just a little off in one fill, or a little slow or a little fast. So having to really pay attention to all those micro divisions has been different than my normal practice.
Certainly. I mean, so what would be advice you have to musicians who are inspired by kind of your projects that you are doing, the progressive overload and the electronic music, jazz and electronic? What kind of advice do you have?
Oh, I'm going on this? Okay. Yeah, okay. I think my main advice would be, trying to learn as much as you can from your heroes. Go take some lessons, study with them. But I would say for Nate and I, a very big thing is, your heroes aren't necessarily going to guide you down a path of what exactly to do with the musical information you're getting. I would also say it's really important to not get stuck in like a freelance mindset. Nate and I are definitely willing to, make a lot of personal sacrifices to try to make that music. And one reason the quintet was very difficult is, Nate was functioning as a band leader. So, you're trying to either pay people to rehearse, you're paying people for the gigs, you're responsible for getting them places, or maybe possibly hotels. Like it's a lot to pay for. So the project was able to move along a lot more quickly and efficiently when we both decided to just kind of split the responsibility of, quote unquote, being a leader. I think the freelance mindset could really, hold you back, and it could hold the project back. So I guess, that would be my biggest thing for young musicians is to really commit to the things that you like to do, and don't always just show up somewhere to just get paid. It comes across in the music as well, if that's what you're doing. You're showing up, putting in minimal effort, play the gig, you want to get paid, you want to go home. if that was our mindset, there's no way we could have gotten these EPs out, and I don't think they would be as good because you're personally where your bar is of what you expect. Like when I track something, some of these things you're listening to, I probably took like 40 takes before I was happy with what I played. If it was like about making, $100 just lay down this track really fast, I wouldn't have done 40 takes,
Yeah.
And, and like I said, I don't think you can rely just necessarily on older musicians to just, kind of put you in their bands and kind of hand everything to you. You're really going to have to take the information that you're seeking. And I have no complaints. I've really gotten a lot of great musical information from teachers over the years, but you can't expect to just like snap your fingers and be in a band that's like paying all of your bills suddenly. It's nothing's really handed to you in that regard. I think those days are probably over. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's a very different time for music, but I think other musicians and fans will agree with me. We're grateful that you guys are putting out great material. What is the best way that people can check you guys out? How do they find the progressive overload music?
Yeah, one of the downsides of choosing a common weightlifting term for our band name is it doesn't show up well in searches.
Yeah.
So, well, we're on like all the music things. It's usually progressive overload music. That's our Facebook, our Instagram. I think we have a Twitter, but we don't use that. So.
The Bandcamp is definitely the best like direct support.
Yes.
By far.
Yes.
So the Bandcamp is.
Yeah,
that's definitely where I would send you.
All of our stuff is also up on Spotify and iTunes and YouTube. So we're gonna have shirts soon.
Yeah, we're getting shirts made with some album art.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to that, and I'm sure you guys will be putting out more material to come. Do you have anything future coming up that you want to mention for the fans? Any future shows or
nothing directly on the horizon, but I think moving forward, we just did an EP that's really composition heavy, so I think we're going to go back to something that's a little bit more live with interaction. I think we'd like to, start featuring some other musicians as a third person on some stuff. Kind of return to more the live playing element. When we were playing a lot of live gigs, we would play just free and open a lot of times too, try to create structures with Ableton kind of on the spot. I think we want to get a little bit back more into that, since we've been locked up for so long, and, we're at a point where I'm craving that human interaction again, that live interaction. So that's definitely, I think, the direction of the new stuff we're going to do. But, we're just starting to plan the next stuff. Getting that EP out was pretty tricky. It was a lot of tracking.
Yeah, that last EP was a lot of work. So we're going to try to come up with something entirely new for the next one. There's a big dichotomy between the freedom and improvisation of jazz and the rigidness of a lot of electronic music. But with some of the innovative MIDI controllers that are coming out, I think there's ways to kind of blur the lines more than has been done in the past.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for doing this interview, and looking forward to seeing more material.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Include links.